Welcome. It is Wednesday Football Roundtable. Please remember to like, share, subscribe to our platforms so we can get our informed word out to as many people as possible. So tonight I'm joined by Eric and David. David, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. How about you?
I'm doing okay. Eric, my man, how you doing?
Happy Wednesday. I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing good. So before we get talking about football, and congratulations to the Florida Gators for winning the NCAA men's basketball college tournament.
I do got to give a special shout out to my Grand Island High School alumni, the head coach of the Florida Gators, Carlin Hartman, 1990 graduated 3 years after I did. Carlin Hartman, shout out to you. He is the Grand Island High School basketball all-time points leader, now head coach of the Florida Gators. So congrats, Carlin.
Very cool. And David, talk a little bit about the NHL.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Alex Ovechkin has surpassed Wayne Gretzky for the most career goals in his career. He broke the record of 894. He went to 895 and the exact amount of games it took Gretzky to get to 894. So shout out to him. That's a great record. Nobody ever thought that would be broken. The one thing that I will say, because there was a lot of discussion about this, when Wayne Gretzky broke that record, there was a big difference in the goaltending equipment. The goaltending, goaltenders didn't have these big pads and big blockers and all this extra padding. So, as the years have gone on, the save percentages and the goals allowed by goalies had decreased while, the save percentages for goalies had gone up. So, to say that, the feat that Alex Ovechkin did was remarkable would be an understatement. Again, I don't think anybody in my foreseeable future is going to break the all-time point streak held by Gretzky, as he has been able to not only score goals, but he was also an amazing playmaker. He would assist on goals, his passing, for as many goals as he scored, he was a very unselfish player. So I think that record is safe for the foreseeable future, but obviously all records are made to be broken, and, Ovechkin deserved it. He's been a great player for however many years he's been playing, 20, I think, or something like that. So good on him, and congrats, man. That's awesome.
And I really got to hand it to him, because here he's very classy about it. Because he could have broken it because they pulled the goalie at the end of the game, and he didn't. Mm-hmm. And he specifically said, I didn't want to beat the record on an open goal. And so the next night it comes out and gets it. And, amazing. He just, I'm not going to do it because, it's a cheap shot.
Sure.
And so, if we had more athletes like that, it'd be great. Kind of like Saquon Barkley. Mm-hmm. You need 13 yards to get the record. And it's like, no, I'd rather see the young kids eat.
Yep.
And that, if we had more of that,
Sure.
it would be great in sports.
Yeah. No, and again, I think the one thing that I like about it is, like you said, I think it was just the class and the way he did it. And it was cool to see Wayne Gretzky going to all the hockey games leading up to it, wanting to be there in case he broke it. I mean, that's the one thing that I give hockey above every other sport is the there can be fighters who fight, but they respect the guy they fight. There can be players who play against each other, but there's this mutual line of respect that you don't, there isn't the hate this mother, all that. There's just a line of respect that all these hockey players have for each other. They respect the game, and they respect each other, and that's great to see. That's great to appreciate in sports,
Right.
So,
And that's where we need to get taught at an early age to do that. Which I think a lot of it. I know all the players in the football field. They respect each other.
sure.
But from the old to the new, I think I see a little bit more. Well, except for Lyle Alzado. He was just a bad motherfucker. But anyway, with that being said, I got to comment on Eric's profile picture here. I love the dog with the hat. One of the best profile pictures I've ever seen. So anyway, I
appreciate that.
Hey, no problem.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I don't have a lot to add. The longevity in hockey, it's the hardest sport. It's not catered to like other athletes. You didn't have, them adjusting rules for Ovechkin or Crosby or Gretzky or Lemieux like they did for, Tom Brady. These guys really have to go play 82 times rather than 16 or 17 times. It's a tough sport. It's a grueling sport. I still think winning a Stanley Cup, it's the hardest thing to do in sports because of just the amount of hockey that entails getting there. Over 100 games of tough collisions on ice, and it's a tough sport. So good on him, and it's cool to see, and it's cool to see the longevity. Like I said, that's the best part of it.
And again, I think the one thing, I think in some instances they have changed the rules in hockey a little bit. I mean, back when Gretzky played, I think the one thing about hockey is you had your roles were laid out very specifically. You had your top two lines that played that were offense. You were offense against offense. Then you had your checking line that you would employ either against your top line to limit them or, slow them down. But then you had your fourth line, which was, let's fight. If the team needs a spark, we're going to send out our three toughest guys and they're just going to drop the gloves and go at it. And, but from, I'd say about the mid 2000s to the early 2010s, they've kind of taken fighting the way it used to be out of the game. And they've allowed for more fluidity in hockey where, lines just roll out. So you don't employ that enforcer. Teams, for the most part, don't have that enforcer type player that you used to, like when you had your Bob Proberts or your, I don't know, name a big guy. It's a dude for Darren McCarty.
Hey, real quick, Dave, as we're going on, have you guys seen Tulsa King with Stallone?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so I have this on in the background, and I'm getting into the hockey bit, but we're in the off season, and their sports is, until we get to the playoffs. Outside of the Ovechkin thing, it's kind of a little bit of a slow time, especially for those of us that like football and aren't big into some of the the NBA and stuff like that. But this Tulsa King reminds me of you guys in Arizona because I mean it's not too far. It's a similar lifestyle. Sean's a New Yorker, right? I mean, you are, and Dave, you're a little bit of a Canadian kind of New Yorker, kind of mix there. And so, anyways, if you guys ever I recommend watching the show. You get a little bit of a Dave and a Sean feel on the show when it's going on in the background.
Yeah, the only problem with me and Sean is we're not drug dealers, and we weren't in the mob, but we can act like it.
I don't think that's necessarily a problem, David.
Well, that's true. But we'd have to act like we were like, in the mob and like we're in the witness protection program or like, I don't know. It'd be interesting.
And Jeffrey gives you a little bit of a mob feel. So, I mean,
thank you, David. Just blew my my witness protection program. My alias was Joey Two Bulls. So, yeah, now I have to move, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks.
Sorry, Sean. I didn't mean to blow your cover.
That's all right. That's all right. So, anyway, bringing up in between seasons, I got 2 weeks to the draft. Yes, I don't know how I feel about this draft. I got the Jets at 7 who are in limbo. I don't know what to feel about it. I was going to go into first, like, what do you consider a sport? And I had my things that consider, why consider something a sport over another. But maybe we'll digress and save that till another time. David, you had said that we're going to discuss teams that absolutely have to get it right.
Yep.
In this draft.
Yep.
Before we get into that,
yep.
Last week Dion had pulled back and said, any team that wants to take Shedeur, we're cool with. We're not being this diva thing. Do you believe that hurt his draft stock at all?
No, I don't believe it hurt his draft stock. I think what Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders got was a taste of humble pie. I think the fact that in the beginning, back in October, back in September, the talk was Shedeur Sanders, #1 draft pick, blah, blah, blah. And he was trying to dictate, well, if this team's #1, I'm not going there. If this team's #1, I'm not going there. Now he has the opportunity to fall down to the mid-20s. And so you find out that just because your name is Sanders doesn't mean that you're anointed the chosen one. You got to earn it. You got to prove it. And there's other people in this draft that are deserving, that people think that are deserving of that pick, whether it's Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, whoever that may be. The fact is he just got served humble pie, and now he's grasping at straw saying, hey, draft me at 7. I don't care if you're the Jets. I don't care if you're Chicago. I don't care if you're Jackson. I don't care who you are. I'll go play for you because you ain't going #1. And you might not go till 21, 22, 19.
Yeah.
So it's just a taste of humble pie.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said there. Before I go into where I'm going to go with this, I want to thank Rich Eisen for watching the show. Because last week, when we were doing our mock draft, at 7, I'm going, Shedeur Sanders is still there. The Jets. And I was hemming and hawing, and we ended up picking the tackle. But all of a sudden this week came out, and it was on Monday. Rich Eisen said, if Shedeur Sanders is there at 7, Jets need to grab him. So I was first, because I trust Rich Eisen. Rich Eisen is a great sports personality, and he knows what he's talking about. He could definitely beat me in the 40-yard dash, even though he's 2 years older than me. But I'm a fat fuck. So.
I do need to ask this question though to you, Sean, and then I want Eric's opinion too, just because. And I look at the Jets and I look at the makeup of the AFC East, and my issue with the Jets, and if Shedeur Sanders is there and they drafted him, are there other you signed Justin Fields to a 2-year contract, okay?
Right.
And the thing that I would ask myself first is, if you're drafting Shador at 9
7.
or 7, are you asking Shador to sit behind Justin Fields to learn and to process? So my only question I would have is, based on the needs of the Jets and where they're weak and where they need to get stronger, especially in the AFC East, with the Dolphins being competitive, with the Patriots being a team on the rise, and the Jets being where they're at. In the first round, do you really, and not that the Jets are bad. I think they have a lot of good pieces. Don't get me wrong. Do I think they have too many running backs? Yeah, I do, especially 2 really good ones. And Ike Davis, who's a decent running back. I mean, Breece Hall could be traded at the draft. We don't know, because that's just the direction they're going. Right now they're saying they're using all 3. I mean, I think if you have a piece that's movable for draft or whatever you can do, you think about it. So I'm just asking, and I'll ask Eric, do you think that there's something of a bigger need at some other position that, based on your signing of Justin Fields, you can draft, as opposed to adding another quarterback that's going to sit behind Justin Fields for a year?
Well, I think any rookie quarterback should sit behind a quarterback and learn for a year or two, especially in a team that's the only exception I'd make is if you have a rookie quarterback come into a team that's really well rounded and that's got a solid foundation already with a good offensive line and good weapons. And if you've got the team that's got all those things already, the rookie quarterback's in a position to succeed. But if you have the Jet situation, you throw a rookie quarterback in a franchise that doesn't have all the polishing that it needs. I think it's okay to draft a quarterback and let him sit for a couple of years because it's the most important position in there. But the game's already fast enough for them, and they're not processing quick enough. And if they don't have the support around them, you're setting them up to fail, because that's why you're drafting at 7 all the time. So I would, if I had a quarterback that I thought was going to be a franchise guy, that in the long run that I could get 10 to 15 years of a franchise quarterback of 25, 30 touchdowns a year uh, out of that, that player, I would draft them and I would sit them while I continue to build my team in other ways. If there's a player I have higher on the draft board that can help my team out, that I can get, proper value out of, I certainly would draft that player. Just depends on who I have at my board and what happens. If they draft Sanders in that situation and he's 7th on their board or higher, I'm not mad at the pick, but Justin Fields is playing until I get all the players developed I need to at every position around him. So, there's nothing wrong. I think Jordan Love, Green Bay's been a great model of quarterbacks about how they've done it with Favre, Rodgers, and Love. None of them have played too early, and they've all had pretty decent success doing it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the draft board is. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of speculation. This part of the offseason is that, which is why it's my least favorite time of the year until the draft happens. But if Sanders there at 7, if Sanders is there at 21, I think he's worth picking.
Sure.
Yeah. Do the Jets have more areas of need than the quarterback? Absolutely. The Jets are historically poor at drafting. Historically. So, is it the right move? I don't know, because I don't think them signing Justin Fields to a 2-year. They're looking for another quarterback, or they would have signed him for longer. They got him cheap, and they can get out of it if it's a mistake. I don't think they're going to go Shador Sanders at 7. I think they will go with the tackle because obviously it is a much bigger need. And, we were going to talk about teams that have to get it right in the draft, and the Jets are definitely one of them. This is Aaron Glenn's first year. If they fuck up rounds 1 and 2 in this draft, it's going to be a problem for years.
Well, I think the one good thing, like when I look at that, like, do I think the Jets have to get this draft right? I don't think so. And yeah, you want every team to get the draft right, obviously. So let me preface this by saying that you just hired Aaron Glenn as your coach. You got a new GM. You are going to have time to build your future. Okay. So I don't think there's that sense of urgency like, okay, I got a head coach who's on the hot seat. I got a GM who's on the hot seat. And if I don't deliver in this draft, I'm out of here. Now, a team that I say the Giants are on the hot seat, they got to hit it 100%, or there's a new coach and GM moving into town next year. So that's the team, one of the teams that I would say you need to hit a home run because, and you need to, and again, the problem with that is you're also playing in a now tougher NFC East. You didn't have the luxury of 2 or 3 years ago when, everybody played subpar. Okay. Now you got Philadelphia, you got Washington, Dallas. I don't know what they're going to do. That's another team that might have to hit a home run, not necessarily because of the coach, but just because of the organization and who you are. I think people are getting impatient in Dallas of the same old. And I'm not even talking about the fans. I'm talking about the players. I mean, players are just not going to want to play there because they're just tired of losing. So from that perspective, I think Dallas is another team that really has to hit on this draft. Again, I don't look at the newer teams with newer head coaches as, this is a make or break draft for you. I could talk about Cleveland. Cleveland's another one that Stefanski and Joe Barry should be on the hot seat because you had a quarterback in Baker Mayfield that you walk away. You brought in Deshaun Watson, which was a complete failure. And now you're at pick number 2. You've traded for Kenny Pickett. You have no other quarterback. And the talk around the league, or from most people, because we're talking about Shedeur Sanders is going to number 9 or 7 at least. Okay. The talk around the league is you're going to draft Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. So you either know that you got another quarterback, veteran guy that you're going to bring in as a bridge quarterback to finish last next year so you can pick Arch Manning or whatever you want to do. But, I mean, I think this coach and general manager, they should be on the hot seat as well because they haven't done anything with anything that they brought. So,
yeah, that's such a great question, not really question, but statement. Yeah, God damn it. Cleveland has been a dumpster fire forever.
mm-hmm.
And I don't get it because it's like maybe they're going to go Shedeur, maybe, but I personally can't believe the GM and the coach are still there. Like,
yep.
2 years ago, I would have pulled the plug on the GM and been like, "You're out of here. You killed this team. You." It's painful. It's painful to look at that, and yeah, I mean, they screw this draft up, and they have a shit season again. Yeah. Well, now you're gonna pull, you got to pull the plug on them, but it's like, how long do we got to wait? as far as Dallas having to get it right, it pains me because I do like the Dallas Cowboys, and they're starting to become the New York Jets and the Oakland Raider team, where like people go there for their careers to die.
Sure.
This was once a great organization. Through the 70s, they were good. In the 80s, they had mixed results. 90s, a dynasty. Should have won 4 in a row, but fired Jimmy Johnson because whatever. And they've been kind of insignificant since. And for such a historic franchise to fall like that, it's painful.
Sure.
And the only thing is I could say is Jerry Jones, except for when he hired McCarthy, who I was never a big fan of as a coach. He was okay. Aaron Rodgers, him and Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl, but that's the only thing they've ever won. That was the year that the Jets should have won the Super Bowl, but we fell to the Steelers. And by the way, Sanchez's arm was moving forward. That was not a fumble. That was an incomplete pass. But anyway, because the Steelers went in there, shit the bed against the Packers. But the Packers and Jets faced off mid-season, and the score of the game was 6-3. I mean, the Jets completely shut Aaron Rodgers down. Thank God the Jets didn't get to the Super Bowl that year because the Jets probably would have won it. And Aaron Rodgers might be a good quarterback right now, but he wouldn't have a Super Bowl title.
Sure. Eric, what are your thoughts?
The difference between making wine and smashing grapes is very fine, my guys. So, so what we're talking about is, first of all, I got to respond to Sean's comments here. Okay,
You liked it. You liked it a lot.
The shitting the bed. It was a 6-point game, even despite Rashard Mendenhall shitting the bed and costing that game that fumble with all the momentum. But still, it's a 6-point game. Ben had the ball at the end. Didn't have the drive he had in Arizona, or against Arizona and Tampa Bay. So yeah, he didn't get it done that game. But the Jets were never that close in that game against Pittsburgh. They still would have lost in 4 or 5 different ways. So I don't think they would. The result would have been any different. It would have probably been a lower scoring game with Green Bay finding a way to win. The Jets had a great defense, but the offense still lacked. It still lacked a bunch. I mean, it wasn't. They got by with a really great defense and a middle of the road offense that could run the ball, and that Jericho Cotchery at the time was just dynamite. And he was kind of money, and that's why he ended up in Pittsburgh later on because of that performance he had with the Jets that year. So where I'm at now, moving forward, talking about what we should, going back to what the Jets should do, is again, I'm not against drafting a quarterback at this point. I'm just not sure if the quarterback is higher on the list than 10 to 15 years out of a right tackle. And this whole I disagree with certain teams needing to kill the draft and certain teams not needing to kill the draft. I think every team at this point has to have a really good draft because the difference between smashing grapes and making wine is very fine. You can go from the edge, the winning in the NFL is such a fine line if it's not fixed, which I'm not convinced it's not fixed, but we can avoid that today. It's such a fine line between winning and losing. You can be a half second slow. Your 40 time as a receiver goes down to a 4.4. Instead, it's a 4.59 or a 4.6, and then the pass is incomplete because you're not in the spot you need to be in. The corner's not flipping his hips quick enough. The linebacker's not, getting in his zone quick enough in the Tampa 2. There's a lot of different factors that happen as athletes age. So I just don't. I think every team needs to consistently have great drafts, and when you don't, you end up the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns' inability to draft is why they stink. over the years they've been just a really bad drafting team. Tim Couch. We can go on and on about all the different Cleveland Browns, Johnny Manziel, the ones they've gambled on and that have not succeeded. They brought in Kenny Pickett anticipating they're going to draft Travis Hunter and develop him as an athlete because they know they're going to probably win 2 or 3 games. And the big money is Arch Manning in 2026.
Well, see, I get your point, Eric, and of course everybody has to have a good draft to contend or be at least considered a contender or to move their franchise forward. I look at, like, for me, I'll go to my Buffalo Bills. They need a good draft. They have a lot of holes to fill. They do defensively. Just because you're drafting 30th and you were good in the league and you were close to the Super Bowl, you have to have a good draft. I agree with your premise. Okay. I think the one thing why I say they have to have a good draft is the one thing about Brandon Beane, from what I observe anyway, and you guys can chime in and tell me different, is Brandon Beane is a very good drafter on the end of day 2, day 3. He finds a lot of value in 4, 5, 6 round. It's the first round picks that when you have the players, the blue chip prospects, those quote unquote can't misses or shouldn't misses, is where Brandon Beane makes, I think, sometimes because he looks too much at his need as opposed to what's out there availability wise, he'll reach. Like, I'll give you an example and tell me what you guys think. You're drafting number 30. You have and Buffalo needs defensive tackles, cornerbacks, and so on and so forth. So Buffalo has, and that's what their needs are, and maybe wide receiver. So the 5 defensive tackles go, 4 cornerbacks go, and 2 wide receivers go. What Buffalo would normally do is say, okay, I needed a defensive tackle, so I'm going to reach for the 6th best defensive tackle and let the 3rd best wide receiver in the draft go. And every team grades people different. I understand that. But to me, just the way I think, I would rather have the 3rd best at that position based on depth as opposed to the 6th best defensive tackle just because I need one. Because if you're at 6th best, the margin of difference between 6 and 10 or 11 or wherever you get to down the line is a lot less than the distance between like 3rd best and 11th best in wide receiver or so on and so forth. So I just think sometimes Brandon Beane reaches for need as opposed to, get the best player, especially when you're drafting 30. Get the best player available that you can plug into your team to. It doesn't matter if you help your defense or your offense, whatever that is. So let me ask your opinion. What do you think, Sean?
Well, first of all, you don't ever worry about the first round if you're the Buffalo Bills because you end up trading the pick away to Kansas City. And, it's just stupid. Yes, you are correct. They don't. Round 1 is you got to take the best player available, even though it may not fit a specific need. But I would agree with your thing. Is don't take the 6th best defensive tackle because the first 5 are gone. If you have the 3rd best wide receiver, which last year Xavier Worthy. Why not draft him? But no, instead they traded the pick. It almost seems like Beane is afraid to draft in the first round because he's afraid to get it wrong. And he does find a lot of value later on.
No, I will tell you last year why they didn't draft in the first round. It had everything to do with money. It was all about the contract. That's the only reason they didn't draft in the first round. Huh?
They didn't get enough compensation for that.
Maybe they didn't, but again, well, they got 2 picks, but the thing is, they didn't. They just it was all that was all about money. It had nothing to do with whether they liked Worthy over Coleman or not. They traded out of the first round just to save money because they went to pick number 32 from Kansas City, and then they traded out to pick 33, and it had nothing to do with that. They could have drafted Xavier or Keon Coleman at 32 because they knew Cleveland wasn't drafting him, but it was all about money. That's all it came down to. So, but yeah,
That's fine.
I think
But I agree with you. Eric,
if I'm a GM and I'm running a team, and I've thought about this a lot, players begin to get very expensive as the longer they're in with the team, the longer they're with you. So if I'm critically thinking through this, I'm always drafting. If I've got 7 picks, I'm drafting the 7 best players in the draft, regardless of need. Because at that point, then I'll look at my team and say, okay, I've got X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to draft 7 quarterbacks, but if I'm looking, okay, I've got I have all these needs, and here's what's available to me. If I don't get a quarterback, but I get 3 linemen, that means I've got 3 linemen under rookie contracts, and I can start to look at their fit and their development, save myself money on more expensive veterans as time goes on. And so I'm always a big proponent of that because the draft's such a crapshoot. You're not really sure if people are going to pan out just because they've had really good careers in college. A lot of college grades are not NFL grades, and vice versa. A lot of NFL grades weren't college grades. It's a different it's a different algorithm altogether. So I disagree with a lot of drafting for need kind of thing. You draft the best players, and the best players are you're gonna give you value and win you games, because they're the best players right there for a reason. Now, you know, moving forward, Brandon Bean, I think the Xavier Worthy thing is going to hurt them a lot. Watching the 2 of those receivers last year, one's going to be just a rotational role player who will probably give you 500-600 yards. Xavier Worthy is going to be another 12, 13, 1,400 yard receiver. So I think, I know Bean didn't want to make a mistake, but I think he's getting a player that's going to be okay to instead of a Pro Bowl, All Pro potential wide receiver. You got to get over that. You got to stop making dumb trades with Kansas City, because it's helping your enemy and weakening yourself every freaking time. It's not as bad as the Mahomes trade, but it's pretty bad.
Well, again, I would just go back and compare their stats. Their stats are not very different. Xavier Worthy and Keon Coleman's stats are not very different, and Keon Coleman missed 4 games with the wrist injury. So when you look at their stats throughout the year, they're really not different.
Okay, but weighty moments, right? And weighty moments,
Worthy was shit about weighty moments when you're
Worthy was the guy, especially in the playoff time. Worthy made some big plays and was trusted and made some iconic type rookie plays, where Coleman in big moments had 22 yards receptions in playoff games. I mean 22 yards.
But let me ask you this question about your weighty moments. Okay, I'll just ask you: in the weighty moments, did Patrick Mahomes used Xavier Worthy because that's all he had in the weighty moments? If you watch Buffalo's offense, there was never one guy that was, with the exception of Shakir, and even then, if you look at him from a target ratio, okay, there was never one receiver who was counted and relied on to be that weighty moment guy. So, yeah, I get it. I understand your point about Xavier Worthy. He had a great game against Buffalo. His stats were skewed against Philadelphia because they were up 57-0 when they finally decided to allow Kansas City to play offense. But again, I just look at it. Had Coleman played the same amount of games as Worthy, their stats probably would have been close to exactly break even. And so at that point, I'm not going to play the this rookie was better than that rookie. Next year, the Bills' offense could look totally different. Xavier or Keon Coleman could have 120 catches. Maybe
Okay,
not.
I understand, but I mean, counterpoint is I think you watching. It's not just the Buffalo game. If you watch through the season, the big plays and big moments and a lot of games were worthy, and you had Kelsey, and he's got the Kansas City's always been good because Mahomes has always been able to delegate, tough yardage to different type receivers, whether it's Noah Gray, whether it's Pachinkov, whether it's Kareem Hunt, whoever he has, his players around him make big plays. But Worthy, when the money was on the line this year, especially a lot, he came up big in the moment. Whereas Keon Coleman, like his draft stock talked about when he was being drafted, he struggles with separation. So where his time came in, he did a lot of in the second and third quarter, not the kind of the big moment kind of guy. He'll be a reliable kind of guy, a guy like I said, a 700 yard average year kind of guy, but he's not going to electrify everything like electric or like Worthy is. Worthy, watching him eye test wise, is going to be an electric wide receiver in the league, where Keon Coleman is going to be a good player, but he's not an electric player. Buffalo needs to take their chances and try to get those electric game breaking type players
You're
instead of
right.
drafting down. Because and it's not just an offense thing. If they had Xavier Worthy would be getting the ball and making electric plays in Buffalo, the same he'd be doing in Kansas City.
No, I don't disagree with you, Eric. I would just say this, and it might be different this year, and we'll see. And I will just say that yeah, Xavier Worthy had a lot more opportunities based on the fact that Hollywood Brown was injured most of the year. Rashi Rice. So I want to see what I want to see Xavier Worthy take advantage of Hollywood Brown and Rashi Rice being in the lineup, and then you know have Xavier Worthy have 75 catches and 1,300 yards, and he very well could. But I will tell you that's probably not likely to happen because Rashi Rice will probably carry most of that load, and he will be the most targeted receiver on that team. And you know, you can compare it to, well, he averages 26 yards a catch and Keon Coleman averages 13. But they're different defenses with different wide receivers and different schemes. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I'm not disagreeing with you that the impact that Worthy had over Keon Coleman last year, it was a bigger impact. I agree with you.
Sean, let me take this. I'm not going to try to take this too far off track, and I promise to try to behave here. I promise. So before what I want to say here is I think with Buffalo, there's Kansas City's willing. You've got to be willing to take sometimes too much of a risk because wide receiver position you get some just absolute freak athletes that are nutbags. You get your Martavis Bryant, you get your Josh Gordon, you get your guys that could absolutely be 4-3-5 wide receivers with great builds who can run like gazelles, but then they're nuts and they can't keep their nose clean. Okay. I think Buffalo has a little bit of we want a certain type of player. I think that plays part of it. But I think there's also a part of it where the coach can handle different type of personalities and is not afraid to try to take that risk. I don't think Buffalo likes to take on those type of personalities one, and I really think that in terms of the way they do their media and the way they prop up, they don't want anybody to challenge the stardom that their quarterback has. And so whereas I think a lot of it is we don't they had enough of Diggs. Enough Diggs was a big personality. Diggs was the leader. It was Diggs' offense. I don't think that meshed well with the quarterback. And so a lot of all their media and their propaganda that every team goes through is all through the quarterback. So I don't think they draft that type of personality, and I think that has to get changed a little bit because it's why they haven't been able to get over the threshold over the years.
Well, sure. No, I agree with you. Go ahead, Sean. I know you probably.
My only thing was Buffalo had a need at wide receiver last year. They had that need. And the people who they have to beat and they can't is the Kansas City fucking Chiefs. And they trade that pick away to the Kansas City Chiefs. It makes no sense in my mind whatsoever.
But can I ask you one question, Sean? And Eric, I want you to be honest with me, because I will tell you the honest truth. If Buffalo drafted Xavier Worthy and didn't trade that pick to the Chiefs, Buffalo still would not have beat Kansas City, because Xavier Worthy would not have been the difference. He wouldn't have.
I disagree.
The reason they lost to the Chiefs was not an offensive problem. It was their lack of defense, their lack of secondary depth. So trading Xavier Worthy for Keon Coleman was not the difference in a win or a loss. Okay. Now, if Buffalo would have kept the pick, not traded with the Chiefs, and drafted, I don't know, some cornerback or safety last year that would have made a difference, okay, and prevented the Chiefs from scoring the most points they scored all year long, I get it. It's fine. Then I could have that argument of, well, they didn't draft Worthy and they drafted Keon Coleman, and they can't beat the Chiefs because their defense can't stop them when it matters in the most important games.
I disagree. I disagree wholeheartedly, and here's why. A couple things. I think Kansas City, so where was the game at? Kansas City, right? And it wasn't at Buffalo.
Yep.
So ideally, I think Xavier Worthy changes an offense, especially one like Buffalo has. I think what Buffalo has, Shakir, who's shifty, okay, but he's not a burner. And Coleman is a guy that lacks separation, but more of a possession combat catch. And Anquan Bolden, if you will, he's more of a probably going to get some tough catches, probably going to use his big body, a physical type receiver if he has to be a prototype. I think Worthy, what he does is he's got game breaking ability, and that changes how a defense plays. So instead of going single safety high, they'll go dual safety deep into a cover 2, maybe even a cover 4 format. So I think he scares you a little bit because of his speed. So their defense, yes, let him down. The offense had the ball at the weighty moment of the game, trying to go ahead and put the game essentially in their hands, and the offense failed in the weighty moment again.
Well, again, my thing is, Eric, but I get you, and I don't want to keep going on about this, but I understand exactly what you're saying. But my problem is at 4th and 1, Josh Allen, Buffalo's still calling a quarterback sneak. On on a 2-point conversion, Buffalo's still going to do that stupid ass quarterback sneak. My problem with that game was the fact that they didn't play smart football and they didn't call the proper plays. I don't think Xavier Worthy on the field would have said, okay, it's 4th and 1. Hey, Worthy, I want you to run a 40-yard fly pattern, because it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But it's not the 4th and 1 that lost the game. If you look at the game and you digest that game, you think about that game, you ponder on that game, you rewatch that game, the play that really lost the game was on 4th and 4. Instead of doing a quick out pattern, okay, instead of getting the 4 yards that you needed, Allen struggles back, takes the blitz, go deeper into the pocket area, leaves the pocket, and then throws it deep to his tight end Kincaid, and the pass is incomplete. That's the play that defined
that was a Hail Mary, because, like I said, when Allen came around, he had no time. There were 3 guys right in his face. The fact that he got that ball 40 yards down the field falling backwards and got it to an open spot.
Yeah, but you know what you do with the blitz, right? You get a guy that can run a 5.
He didn't do it. He spun around. He turned right into it.
I know, but your wide receiver, hey, I recognize the blitz is coming even at the last minute.
No, nobody.
I've got a guy that can break off a
I
route.
get it, but nobody recognized the blitz because Kansas City never ran that blitz. That's what the whole problem with that play was, and that's what was said after the game in the press conference by Andy Reid. We never ran that play. Buffalo was playing us based on everything we did. We never ran that play, and when we did it, the team was not even prepared because they had never seen Kansas City do that. And all of a sudden you had 3 free guys because the entire offensive line had shifted left and there were 3 free rushers coming from the right side. So the fact that even if the guy would have ran an out pattern, Josh Allen had no time to even look at where any out pattern would have been. The fact was he heaved the ball 40 yards down the field, and the fact that it even got close to a open Dalton Kincaid who overran the route and had to come back and drop it was spectacular in itself. But again, I'm not going to argue this to argue it. I agree with
it's the offseason. We got time. And to be fair, I mean, Sean could sit here and say, hey, did Joe Namath ever see something he never saw? And did he ever adjust to it on the play? Did Ben Roethlisberger ever get a blitz where he was about to be tackled and then made something spectacular happen by ad-libbing? When I say about the weighty moments, about learning how to deal with things and what makes you great, that's why Josh Allen's not among the greats. You've just explained it.
Dude, I've seen Josh Allen plenty of times adjust to make weighty moment plays when there was nothing.
Let me finish. That was the weightiest moment of the game. That was a 4th down play that you had to have, that you're probably going to win the game if you convert it. And he saw something he didn't have, and he struggled and reacted and threw it 40 yards downfield. Great throw, but that didn't happen. But Ben probably avoids that. Ben avoids that sack, gets out, and he hits somebody.
If Dalton Kincaid catches that ball, the entire argument shifts.
Yeah, you get your Ben Roethlisberger.
But then wait, so is it Josh Allen's weighty moment or is it Dalton Kincaid's?
It's Josh Allen's weighty moment.
Spectacular catch.
It is 100% Josh Allen's weighty moment because you, as a quarterback, the great ones.
He can't catch the ball. He can put the ball where it's catchable.
Brady, Manning, and all that.
Okay,
they made it happen. Okay,
they didn't make it happen. Yeah, they put the ball in a position where a receiver can catch the ball, and the receiver caught it. The quarterback can throw the ball to a wide open guy. Josh Allen did it 2 years in a row. He did it to Dalton Kincaid, and he dropped it. He did it to Stephon Diggs, and he dropped it. Tom Brady did not throw the ball, run down to the wide receiver, and wrap his hands around the ball. Okay,
where was the ball
Brady made the throw. Brady made a beautiful throw.
Where's the ball placement?
Where's
the ball placement?
Last year it went right through Stephon Diggs' hands. If you watch the game,
okay,
and if you watch this game, Dalton Kincaid, yes, he had to run back because he overran the ball because, number one, he wasn't even expecting the ball to be there because the fact that they blitzed that way, and Josh Allen had 2 seconds and he threw it 40 yards.
Okay.
Backpedaling.
Ben Brady, Manning, all the greats. The ball is between the numbers in that moment.
Okay. All right. That's cool. All right.
All right. Well, we're going to move on here, guys. I let you argue long enough.
I'm not arguing. Oh my
God. So anyway, the end of this argument was that Buffalo traded away that pick to Kansas City, and then at 33 they picked Keon Coleman anyway. Yeah. So they went with someone who was rated lower for whatever. So it wasn't a great move. But anyway, it is what it is. Okay, so let's go through team by team. Who needs to make this draft happen? And it's going to be a simple yes or no, and a quick why. The Tennessee Titans at number 1. Do they have to hit this draft, or is this first pick? This is always so much pressure.
I would say They don't have to hit the complete draft. I think having the number one pick, they have to make sure that whoever their guy is, if it's Cam Ward, that they have to be right on that. If you're picking a quarterback at number one, you have to be right. Because if you get the wrong quarterback, it can set your franchise back another 5-6 years, because you're going to have to wait and then draft another quarterback 2 years later. I just think that picking first and picking the quarterback, you have to be 100 and maybe 1,000% convicted that this guy is that guy. Anthony, to your point, do you really need a quarterback? In Tennessee, I think you do, because I think you've given Will Levis the 2 years to prove if he was or wasn't a quarterback. And I think the one thing that any team that's coming in with a new front office, new head coach, they want to put their stamp on what they envision as their offense. And obviously, Will Levis probably doesn't fit the offense that this coach is trying to run. So I do believe that, drafting the right quarterback for the offense you want to run is key. I do believe that. Eric, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to say yes to all 32 teams here. So Sean will just have to, when you want my opinion, I'll give it to you. But every team needs to hit their draft, and especially if you're not 32, the closer we get to 32, you can be like, yeah, maybe not, because you're at least at 32, you're at least pretty good. 1 through like 25, yeah, you need to hit your draft because you're not close to being at 32. So yes, Tennessee needs to hit their draft. Yes, the most important position is the quarterback. Yes, you don't rush the quarterback until you have the team polished around him enough that you can be competitive and win games. But you still try to get the quarterback to get the franchise guy that when you are polished enough, you can make wine and not smash grapes.
Well, I'll be making sure you answer. I miss our debates too, so we'll be debating.
All right. So number 2 is Cleveland Browns. The only reason why I'm going to say no is because, number 1, they suck at drafting. Number 2, after the whole Deshaun Watson debacle, I don't think the GM or the coach are going to lose their job. I mean, how could they not have lost it already? Like, it makes no sense to me whatsoever how these guys have their jobs.
Well, I think Jimmy Haslam.
This is a joke. They're better off bringing in fucking Doge to run that goddamn team than they are the monkeys that got running it now. And when I say monkeys, I don't mean
right. Like I said, I think Jimmy Haslam took responsibility for that, because him and his wife were very key in the Deshaun Watson trade involvement and wanting to get him. So I'm not going to pin it 100% on the GM. I mean, the ownership group had a lot to do with that as well. So I'm not going to pin everything, but I will pin everything that since that happened, they haven't done shit in the draft either. So again, it's one of those narratives that I agree with you, Sean. They don't deserve a job because they haven't done anything to deserve a job since. But do they have to hit? Exactly, Anthony. We'll get to them next. But they do definitely. I think if Andrew Berry and them want to prove that they are worthy of front office and head coach, they need to hit this draft. They need to think outside a little bit and not panic, because quarterback is a need. If you don't think Shedeur Sanders is that guy who's going to lead your franchise for 10 or 15 years, you don't do that. I think that even though you're drafting up front and early, it doesn't necessarily mean you take the second best quarterback available for a building block of your team. You just signed Myles Garrett to a 4-year contract extension. To me, an Abdul Carter at this pick would be great because you'd solidify both ends. And you're playing in a division where you need to contain a Lamar Jackson. You need to stop a Joe Burrow from throwing all over you. And Mason Rudolph is, according to Eric, is going to have 728 yards and 7 touchdowns a game, according to Madden. So you need a defense that's going to pressure quarterbacks. So I would definitely I would go that route because that's what you're trying to contain. Go ahead, Eric.
Hell yeah, Mason Rudolph. So listen, dude, my answer is yes for until we get to 32. But here's the reason: they need to get the best player. Cleveland needs to not look at what need or what how can we stop Lamar Jackson. They just need really good football players. They need guys that are really good, going to be really good franchise type players. That could be an offensive lineman, that could be the defensive lineman that you mentioned, that could be the edge rusher, it could be Travis Hunter. They just need to get the guy that's going to be the best football player, so when they get a quarterback, a guy could come in there and say, I've got some really good teammates and I've got some really good franchise type players I'm coming into this franchise with that I can be successful with. If Travis Hunter is the second best player, I've got a really talented guy that can play both ways, a receiver that I can get him the ball and that can be a game breaker. So it's not necessarily about how am I going to match up with Baltimore, because you're going to get your ass kicked because you have Kenny Pickett at quarterback. You worry about having the best player right now. So when you have a quarterback, you don't have a situation where Arch Manning's like, I'm not fucking going to Cleveland, and quarterbacks are like, actively not wanting to come to your franchise. Because I can guarantee you this: Arch Manning's hoping they win the draft and they go 9-8 with Kenny Pickett, so he doesn't have to go there. So I know he's actively rooting it. Nobody really wants to go to Cleveland right now. But you can change that by having Travis Hunter come in and have 1,500 yards and be in a game-breaking wide receiver.
Okay. So we'll go on to number 3, the New York Giants. As Anthony pointed out, and I think we all believe, if they don't hit it, that front office and coach is gone. I honestly is another one. Karen Carter would be a good team. Okay. Well, maybe, but the problem is the Browns have the organization, the culture, everything is just off.
And Kenny Pickett at quarterback.
Well, small hands, you love it. So now on to the Giants. They they're going to be gone. The front office and the coach. I personally cannot believe, just like Cleveland, that they are still there. After the signing of Danny Dimes and after the release of Saquon, they had a good draft last year, but that whole mistake, I can't believe the general manager is still there. I can see Dable, and he's on thin ice, but that general manager got to go, man.
No, I don't see Dable at all. I don't see Shane at all. I think the only thing that can save them is if Travis Hunter falls. If Travis Hunter falls to 3, that would help them. I mean, they already have a good defense, but offensively, they need playmakers. I mean, like we talked about, when you signed Darius Slayton to a deal larger than what you could have had Saquon Barkley for, your front office don't know shit about nothing. So you need playmakers in New York. You need guys who are going to make difference offensively to be able to score points, because that's what you're going to have to do in the NFC East. You're going to have to score points. If they don't hit this draft, these guys are gone.
The Giants will trade down. but they do need to hit it. But they'll be a team that trades out of that pick, I think, because there will be teams that need to come up, and I think there will be one that moves down. I don't know how far, but here's my thing: that GM's probably out if they don't hit it big. They probably need to hit this draft. If they hit the draft, it could change something. But it is going to be the most fun team to follow this year, with having Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson in that QB room. It is going to be a load of fun because you're either going to have Jameis Winston throw 50 touchdowns and 50 interceptions in the same season, throwing to Travis Hunter and Neighbors, or you're going to have Russell Wilson throwing every pass deep and Neighbors having 2,000 yards and Russell Wilson having 2,100 yards passing. So Neighbors getting 2,000 of that 2,100. But it'll be entertaining. I can't wait. And they should do Hard Knocks the entire year because I would pay tons of money to watch that quarterback room.
Sure.
Fucking Hard Knocks. That's the kiss of death for all teams. All right. The Patriots. I don't believe the Patriots. No one's in danger of losing their job. I do feel sorry for Gerard Mayo. And I think that whole thing was bullshit. But we'll move beyond there. I think we've already had that conversation. Vrabel's there. Vrabel is he's gonna be the next Belichick. They're all gonna love him. He is not the next Bill Belichick, but he's good. He's an inspiration. He can get the most out of his team, and I don't think no matter how it goes, anyone in that building is in any danger.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think, yeah, that would be funny, Anthony. I mean,
oh God, yeah.
Why not?
Can you imagine Dion if that happened? Shallow doesn't like it. Can you imagine if Dion, if that happens? She can imagine it. The social media room going on. See, Shallow's a fan of that. I can imagine it. I got to run, boys. She wants to go out, so I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay. See, like not even Eric's dog is taking that Sidor Sanders shit to the Giants.
No, but like I said, I think for New England, what they got to do is just draft the best player at the position they need because they're going to be able to, which would probably be offensive lineman, probably a Will Campbell or the Mabuba or whatever his name is. I can't even talk. I can't even say it. But I think they should draft an offensive lineman, give Drake May an offensive line, a good offensive line for him as a year 2 quarterback to be able to develop, get comfortable in the pocket, do the things that he's got to do. They signed Stephon Diggs if he comes back right away and plays. They have other playmakers, but they just need to be patient and let Vrabel build his team how he needs to. But I don't I guess in the first round, everybody has to hit or wants to hit, but I don't think it's like life-threatening. But I think they'll take their best player available for their positional need.
Okay. Real quick question. I'm going to move on. 1 to 10. What are the chances of Abdul Carter falling to number 4?
I don't think so.
Okay, I agree.
I don't think it. I mean, it could happen. I mean, it very well could. I think that would be crazy because I think if the Patriots can get them at 5, that would be fantastic for them. Are they 4?
Yeah, they're 4.
Oh, well, even then. But
I don't think he falls that far.
Well,
because if Cleveland doesn't take him, the Giants are going to grab him.
Yeah.
No way he goes past the Giants.
Yeah, but we'll see.
All right,
but it would be it very well could be Abdul Carter at number 4, and if he's there, then the Patriots take him. I mean,
I just was asking the odds of him falling to 4. That one of the first 3 teams is going to pick him.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so then we got at 5 the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Doug Peterson. Unfortunately, he has nothing. He's got input, but I think if they miss on this and they have that same season they had last year, I don't see Doug Peterson there.
Well,
They got to do something.
he got fired. They got a new coach.
Oh shit. Okay. So
I forget who their coach is, but they got a new one.
That's right. That's right. He was part of the Black Monday thingy.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, again, you look at them. Do you say that's another team that needs an offensive lineman. You got to get Trevor Lawrence to stay upright and be healthy. So, yeah, I think they do need to hit. I think, especially with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you got to build his confidence back up because he's been rocked the last couple of years. So,
right,
you need to hit on the guy. Yeah, absolutely.
He's a good quarterback, and I look back at it and say, "Wow, if the Jets had him, maybe we could have done something." But the Jets suck. Okay, so then we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Now this is crazy, man, because you got Pete Carroll there, which I think was a great hire by them because that's the one thing that the Raiders need is some sort of discipline and hey, but besides Geno Smith and Max Crosby, can you name other Raiders?
Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers.
Okay, Bowers was a powerhouse.
Yeah, Brock Bowers is fantastic, and he'll only get better with Geno Smith. Again, I think you need playmakers, and they're going to draft a running back because they need one. That's part of Pete Carroll's MO. They need a strong running game. They've had one in Seattle every year he's been coach. He knows that. He understands that the passing game goes through the running game and develops through the running game. And Ashton Jenney will get picked by the Raiders. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a make or break season for them that they have to hit it, but they definitely need to do something. And then now we got the Jets. We've discussed this is not a make or break with having to hit this draft because it's first year head coach, first year GM. They're just looking for improvement. So got to pick the best available. There's the talk of the tight end, but honestly, it's going to be offensive line. I think they need to do as long as it's not like Mekhi Becton, who was shit as a left tackle, but as a right guard, he's great. Well, no shit. It's a lot easier position to play.
No way, Anthony.
Wow. To have that double header like Hernandez and Gronk.
You'd have Bowers and Warren. They're already trying to trade Mike Myers out of the Raiders, who they drafted 2 years ago. So no,
wait. If Warren comes there, this is my thing again. So if you have a tight end who you think's a Hall of Fame tight end, and you have another tight end who you think's a Hall of Fame tight end, you can make that work in your offense. Do we not remember New England and Gronk and Hernandez?
Yeah.
So I mean, I do think you make that work, and you take your best player available, right? So I think Warren's a great tight end. I think he's going to be really good. Sneaky draft pick. I think whoever gets him, you just make it work out wherever he goes.
I'm not questioning Warren as a tight end. I'm questioning that pick is too high to have now, if you had the luxury of other playmakers on your team and you said, hey, we could be a juggernaut if we had, if they would have never traded Devontae Adams and they had Jacoby Myers and let's say Zamir White had worked out at running back and they didn't trade Josh Jacobs away, then yeah, that would be a gift wrapped in a big bow that would have said our offense can be unstoppable. But there's too many other needs, and they need a running game. And Ashton Jenney being on that board, it's not a make or break draft, but this is the time to build up those playmakers on your offense. But again, Tyler Warren's going to be a great tight end. There's no doubt about it.
All right, so we went back to the Raiders. We already done the Jets. Let's go to Carolina. They're so poor. So poor.
it's not a make or break. They got a new coaching staff, but they need to start getting playmakers. They're at the point in Bryce Young's development where they have to put playmakers around him to find out if he's going to be deserving of the next contract or if they're going to be looking at what next year's quarterback class looks like. So I think they really have to get the playmakers around Bryce Young, because I think this is the year you find out if he's worth the investment or do we move on. Eric, any thoughts about that?
About who are we at?
Carolina. I was just saying that
Oh.
Bryce Young, they have to put playmakers around him because this is the year that they have to figure out if he's worth the money or not.
So this is, I love it, Dave. We would be such a different GM. I would love to be able to, maybe someday that, you know, you never know. Maybe someday I'm in that position where I'm in a draft room and we're picking players. But, you know, what I would say is I want the best player available. So if I'm Carolina, yes, they need to win the draft because as a team that's been nowhere close to competing, they need to get really talented, high caliber players into that team. So they need to win it. Is Bryce Young going to be the answer? Maybe, but I don't think wide receivers probably 80% of the time are running corners off or blocking. And instead of 20% of the time, maybe even less, they're actually making a catch. So I think you figure out one way or another. If Young's the guy, I don't know if a rookie receiver is going to do it, but you know, I don't know if you can get. I don't know if that's enough of a playmaker to make your mind up if he's going to be the guy or not. You probably need to go into free agency with that attitude and try to get 2 or 3 receivers and be aggressive. So, you know, every team needs to win the draft. That's not 32, but they really need some impact players. They need a Julius Peppers. They need a guy that's an iconic guy because that franchise has not been going in the right direction or getting anywhere close to going to the right direction for quite some time.
And I can see Carolina possibly trading back. I can't see him trading up because this is the first time they've had a first round pick in 3 years, 2 years. So, yeah, they definitely got to do something. Then we got the Saints. I don't think they need to nail it, but I mean, the thing is that NFC South, that's open for the taking. And unfortunately, I think you got Derek Carr's quarterback, who was great for 2 games last year. I don't see him, you know, I just don't see it happening. Maybe.
Well, this is where I think the Shedeur Sanders slide ends, because I think any team that needs a quarterback, Derek Carr's getting old, he's getting expensive, and you need to start. If you're New Orleans, you're looking at it. You have a new coach, you have a new front office. This is where you say to yourself, I'm not going to be great, but I want to compete, but I want to be able to be better next year. And I'll let the guy, Derek Carr, I'll let Shedeur Sanders sit behind the veteran. I will let him learn from the veteran. And, you know, if the season gets out of hand, I can always put Shedeur Sanders in to give him experience during the season. But this is one of the prime spots where I think Shedeur Sanders could actually flourish and develop into a quality starting quarterback, because there's not going to be the pressure to have to be the savior of your franchise right away.
You know, I think he ends up being like Aaron Brooks, though, in New Orleans, because I don't know if they have enough support staff to really handle developing a quarterback. The only quarterback that's ever been successful there in my lifetime was Drew Brees, and Drew Brees was already developed when he came in there. He just was a perfect pairing with his coach. So, you know, you look at the history of their quarterback play, been Derek Carr, Breeze, Taysom Hill, Aaron Brooks, some of those quarterbacks that they've had over the years, and they've had some flash in the pan, some Jeff Blake type quarterbacks that have come through, but never a long sustained quarterback. So I don't know if that quote unquote is the great foster environment for him to develop.
Who's the head coach there now?
Is it not Kellen Moore?
Yes, Kellen Moore.
That's why I think it would be a very good place for him to go.
I'm not sure if I'm convinced Kellen Moore is a great quarterback developing coach yet. The book's still out on him. Young guy. What is his experience that he had Dak? I mean, Dak was already quite developed when Kellen Moore was calling the offense. And I don't know if we can use Dak as a great example of.
Well, I think Kellen Moore was the quarterback coach before he was calling the offense. And look at nothing for nothing. As much as we sit here and bag on Dak, okay.
Kellen Moore was from Philadelphia. He was with the Cowboys, but they went to Philadelphia. He was working in Philadelphia when he got.
Right, I know. But
okay.
He got hired. He was a Cowboy first, and then went to Philadelphia. Right.
Yes, he was. Okay.
So my thing is, as much as we like to bag on Dak, I don't think we bag on Dak as much as we bag on the play calling of what they do in Dallas. And again, I think that had to do with a lot of the players that Dallas had. I mean, we always said if Dak Prescott throws the ball 50 times, Dallas loses because and Dak has great stats. And again, I know it's not a stat thing. There's more to it than that. But I think if Kellen Moore has the right staff, I think he can develop a guy like Shedeur Sanders to play in that offense. And the good thing is if that's the kind of quarterback you want in that offense, I think a Kellen Moore, there could be worse that would have to develop him. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So here we go, guys. I'm sitting here smelling barbecue sauce on ribs, and it smells delicious. So
we can do half the teams. We don't have to go through the whole.
I just want to go through two more,
okay,
and we'll get off. And then we got 2 weeks of the draft. We can go through the second half of the draft. But two more teams that I think have to nail this draft. Number one is San Francisco. I think with the Brock Purdy thing coming up, and they've lost so much, I think they have to hit it in order to remain relevant. And then, so David, you're going to go first on that one, then Eric, and then the next one we're going to talk about is the Bengals.
Okay, no, I'll go first. I'll say it real quick. Yeah, they have to hit. They've lost a lot of talent, and they have to replenish their talent. So, they got a lot of holes to fill now. That's the downside of signing all your guys to give yourself a 3-year window on a quarterback who didn't cost you anything. And this is the reap what you sow time. And so they got to be diligent and they got to hit their picks.
Remember when I said that when you kick the can down the road, eventually the bill gets due?
Yeah,
I remember what you said, but some teams did it more unjudiciously than others.
And so, the Bills do. So just remember what San Francisco is going through, my friend up there, because eventually the bill will be due for you too. And Sean will be very happy because his at that point his Shedeur Sanders led Jets will be in first place. So when that does happen, and our dreams will come true there, Sean. As far as the teams that need to win, the 49ers, they do. The Bills do. So they're going to need a lot of young players, and they're going to need young players to develop into quality players, and they have a track record of doing it. I trust John Lynch. Of all the franchises, I think that will handle the rebuild. I think he'll do fine. But they need to win the draft, and that's probably a team that he's not in any danger, but it's a team that if they don't have a really good draft, will be really bad for a while.
Let me get into this debate real quick because Eric likes to debate, so I'll debate a little bit. There's a difference between kicking $12 million in cap space up the road than there is going from 1.5 million to 60 million, which is what Brock Purdy wants. That's a bigger can to kick. So the difference that you're not realizing, and the thing that you're not realizing is that strategically, Buffalo has done a lot of wonderful things by kicking the can before it got down the road, because they kicked the can the first time with Josh Allen and they gave him an under market value deal. And then they kicked the can again by redoing and actually giving him not a contract extension, but an entirely new contract that kicked the can $12 million, and he's still under market value based on his performance and what he did as an MVP. So he's still the sixth highest paid in dollars as a quarterback in the league. So I think San Francisco went all in and paid all those guys all that money because they were playing with a quarterback who was making the minimum as the Mr. Irrelevant pick in the NFL draft. And now they have the bill to pay. And so, whereas Buffalo has had to shed, whether it's Trey White because he wasn't playing up to the all-pro ability anymore, whether it was Stephon Diggs, who wasn't fitting the mold in Buffalo or whatever, whether it's Von Miller this year, who hasn't been relevant in 2 years because of his ACL, they've made strategic moves where, yeah, they've had to shed and they might have had to held on to some dead cap money, but they haven't had to totally dismantle their entire team to rebuild it because their quarterback was already taken care of 2 years before he had to be. They've been very proactive in that ability to work around a salary cap when a quarterback is so top heavy in salary cap. They've been able to do that with minimizing their losses.
You know, I find it fun, Sean, that he makes this point. Dave, I've learned to debate you very well because you'll make the same point about 8 different ways in your diatribe. So let me respond to that really quickly so Sean can get to his ribs in a very non-Jeff-like response here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have the 6th highest paid quarterback, and statistically, he probably should have won the MVP last year, but he's probably the 6th best statistic quarterback this year if you look down the list about who should have won MVP or not. So he's probably paid pretty fairly based on how the season finished. Secondly, how many times has that contract been restructured? It's been restructured a lot, and I'll come up with some graphics in the cap of what you're looking at the next few years as the season goes on. And then every year as we go on, your team is now you definitely overproduced this year and got further than you should have based on your talent, and your quarterback has a lot to do with that. He deserves a lot of credit. But every year you're a little less and less, and you have less and less talent, but at the same time your quarterback keeps you afloat. But that's not going to last forever as he gets into his 30s and his physical skills begin to diminish and his injuries start to mount, which they've already started to mount for the poor guy because he's had a couple different injuries on his hands and his arms that are going to start to linger as the human body begins to falter from all the different activity of being hit by a car, which is what football is, getting hit by a car over and over and over again. So that being said, there wasn't any significant improvement in free agency because you didn't have the money to do it, and there'll be even less improvement and more trying to make tough decisions on players as the season goes on because of that kicking the can down the road, which I will share graphics with you going forward.
We were able to take care of our own.
All right. Well, that being said, we're going to pick up with the Bengals next week because I am starving.
Oh,
you're
such a Sean.
Yes, I know.
Oh, I'm starving. My rib.
Hey, to be honest with you, I don't blame him, though, because it's at the point of the season now where it's like, man, ribs, speculation, Josh Allen debate. Welcome to the offseason, my guys.
We haven't had one of these in a while, Eric. It'd be good to see your face, though.
Hey, to be honest,
your dog hat.
I'm okay looking at the dog in the baseball hat.
I think the dog is better looking than I am. So
no, I'd rather see your face because I'd like to debate you and watch your face get red and have that vein stick out in your forehead.
So to be honest with you, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, when you and Jeff debate, you guys get those veins sticking out of your forehead. I like to get you that way sometime.
Well, to be fair, I think my poker face is better with the dog with the baseball hat. And so I think that lets me hold my cards a little better. And you never know when Jeff's going to pop on. So I've been strategically playing that out. But I will let you know, I was going to start working on my reviews, and I got nothing done in the last hour and a half. So it's been a pleasure.
Well, there you go. But I will say this, Eric. When we do debate, I don't get you nearly as riled up as Jeffrey does.
I think somehow that Jeff and I are sort of alike, and I think he might be my mini me. So I think it's just sometimes looking in the mirror and I see a miniature version of myself.
Yeah. I can have civil debates, and you and Jeffrey are like, you're like oil and water. You'll say, like, you could look outside and there'd be the sunshine, and he'd say it's raining just to piss you off, and then you'd have to argue 45 minutes to try to argue the difference between what sun and rain is.
You know, we've been pretty well behaved for the viewers listening in on the chat. I don't think we've had any big blow-ups here.
You guys start talking political nonsense, man. I don't even bother. I'm like,
that's because we're bored right now. So that's the only thing to talk about.
I know, and you guys keep doing shit to drag me into it, and I ain't doing it.
Yeah, anyway, let me just say this: tariffs are good.
Okay, we do not talk politics on the show. You're an idiot, and that's all I have to say about that. But anyway,
I hope you enjoy your ribs, Sean.
I will. I'm starving like Marvin over here.
Just remember, next time you get ribs, they're going to be 25 cents more.
Well, hell of a lot more than now with the tariffs. But anyway,
tariffs.
Anyway, with that being said, we will have a show next week, and then the following week is draft week, so we will be on Thursday. We're going to put the link out to everybody. Please come in and join us. I know there's only one person watching right now. Anyway, so we'll post that link. Everyone come in. It's going to be a big party. I don't have any television, so I can't tell who's getting drafted when. I'm going to rely on
we'll let you know, Sean.
Yeah, and like 2 years ago, somebody's just like, oh, my God, the Tennessee drafted somebody stupid. And I was freaking out about it on air, but then it turned out they were just messing with me. Anyway, so with that being said, you all have a good night, and we will see you next week from the couch.
Night.